Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to the Audio Analyst. Pardon me. As outlined in episode 76, my interview with Al DiMeola about his latest record, Saturday Night in San Francisco, the founder of Impex Records, Abey Fonn, had reached out to me to cover this milestone release. Now that the record is shipping and the Compact Disc and SACD are about to drop, she joins us today to answer some of my questions and to share some interesting details about the remarkable process of the 2.5-year journey, the labor of love, that it took to realize this remarkable companion record to the 1981 classic Friday Night in San Francisco. Here is our conversation. Joining me today is Abey Fonn, the founder of Impex Records. Now, I know you stay really busy, so thanks for making time to chat with us today. We really appreciate it. And a special thanks for making possible the interview with Al just a few weeks ago in episode 76.
You're very, very welcome.
Now, we've talked about this briefly. I know you were involved with Cisco Music at one point, which seems to have morphed into what we now know as Impex. Can you briefly walk us through how Impex came to be?
Yes, happy to. Cisco, after 41 years, closed its door in 2008, and the team kind of dispersed, and we all went separate ways, and I went into a completely different field, financial planning.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Big difference.
In 2010, I was talking to friends, and we were looking at various things that I might be interested in pursuing. And it kept coming back to music and reissuing what we did at Cisco. So with, the encouragement of friends and support, I launched, with my dad, we launched Impex Record. Impex stands for Impex Import Export.
Oh, okay.
Abbreviation. Cool. So we started Impex Records in end of 2009, beginning of 2010, and to kind of bring back the team, I reached out to the guys I work with at Cisco, the audiophile team, and we just thought it would be great to get back together. It's kind of like getting the band back together. And it's been a great journey. We've all worked together for so long. There's such a good synergy, and it's very efficient because we've worked together for a long time too.
Well, you and I briefly talked about it. You had mentioned how proud you were of the Cisco Asia record. Yes. And I mentioned in the Guilty Treasure I did about Asia, I mentioned a few records, and that is far and away the one you need to have if you're spinning vinyl like I do. Now, also, Impex has established an incomparable reputation for producing exceptional analog reissues of older recordings. And this project with Saturday Night in San Francisco seems to have a lot in common with the Impex Patricia Barber release Click, which is a product of the same recording sessions that produced her 2019 album Higher. Correct?
Correct.
So do we see a new pattern for Impex releases taking form here?
Well, Impex has always been known as a reissue label, and even though we don't have many releases every year, we're trying to change that. But every project is like a baby to me. We start from ground up and we give it our all. But it's been a wonderful change working on new recordings, and it started with Patricia Barber, Higher, followed by her Grammy-nominated album Click. Yeah. And now Saturday Night. So we're hoping that this will capture the eyes of other great artists, and definitely something I'm interested in continuing outside of our reissue, of course.
Sure. Don't give up the reissues, please.
No.
So how did it first come to your attention that there were recordings from Saturday Night at the Warfield?
Well, we knew the performance was a 2-night concert, but I knew there was only made available Friday night in San Francisco. So when my good friend Chuck Granada, who was also the co-producer of this album, was speaking to John Jackson at the time, I believe he was the head of Legacy or the head of A&R and Legacy, they were discussing this project. John was quite impressed with how well Impex did with Friday Night in San Francisco on both
Yeah.
33 and 45, that he asked Chuck if this is something I would be interested in. Chuck called me on the spot, and I think we had a 30-second conversation. And as soon as I heard there's Saturday night, there's analog tapes, untouched, 6 multi-tracks, I just said yes.
Wow.
I didn't ask any question. I was like, yes, yes, yes.
Well, the Friday Night 45 is just a knockout. A lot of people talk about a certain repress from another label who I won't mention, but in my system, the Impex just is stunning. It's great. So I'm glad you got involved with this project, because I think it's a well, you know what I think of the record. We'll talk about that again. But you mentioned Legacy, and I gather that Sony Music Entertainment's Legacy recordings still had the rights for the publication. Were they easy to work with for this licensing, and was that a potential barrier to this project for you?
Well, first of all, Al is a Sony artist,
Okay.
so we had to work, hand in hand with Sony to release and to license and release
Sure.
this project. I think, licensing has always been complicated, and it has become even more complicated recently, especially with the demands of reissues, LP releases. But I've been working with Sony going back to the early BMG days,
Oh,
and I have really good relationship with some of the key members at Sony. So it's been great working with them. They're very collaborative. They do their best, and we work well together.
good.
But licensing has never been easy.
Well, I suspect the fact that you had an existing relationship didn't hurt this process at all.
Yes, it did
So
help. Yeah.
cool. I was curious because I know that can be a nightmare. That's why I wanted to ask about it. So
It
now,
has its challenges, and
yeah,
there's also a lot of people involved. So even if you have a good relationship with somebody, there's always, somebody above them, or, different departments, So there's a lot of chef in the kitchen.
is there a lot of red tape involved?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So now where Friday Night featured 3 different pairings of the trio, Paco and Al, John and Al, and then who's left? John and Paco. What I thought was interesting about the Saturday Night record is there's 3 solos on here. There's a solo from each guy, which is really kind of fascinating. Now, was that a deliberate choice, and was it Al's choice, or was it a collaborative decision?
I think everything about this album is deliberate. It was very meticulously thought out. Al, really listened to the entire event, and I think he brilliantly chose the layout. He also, I felt, was very fair in showcasing the trio, where kind of like everybody
Sure.
had their spotlight.
Yeah.
So notice that everybody has 2 tracks, and then you have the trio together.
Yeah. Is it Katsuhichu, the NATO Katsu at Katsu Sound, who took the first pass at restoring the tapes? And now, I guess at some point you and Bob Vance heard those and felt that there was probably more available information on the originals, right?
Correct. So Katsu,
yeah,
I'm trying to think. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of his last name. It's
NATO.
Nahito, not Nahito, I think. Katsu. He's Al's personal engineer,
right?
Longtime friend and engineer. And Katsu took the first step in restoring the tapes, and he did the edits and created the first mix. And I was somewhat involved in the process. I wasn't in the decision-making part of the edit, but I was involved in listening to the first finished mix.
So that's when you got Ulrike Schwartz involved. Now, my understanding, she's mostly done like some jazz and classical stuff, right? I mean, is this kind of a different venue or different direction for her? I know her husband Jim Anderson and she worked together occasionally too.
Yes.
But I was just surprised because when I look back at her work, it seems to be mostly classical, unless I've missed something.
Well, she's classically trained, and she's also a tone meister.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
she's quite accomplished in her own right. And this was it was um it was just kind of like everything coming together for us. So the original plan was we were going to do a surround.
Oh, wow.
And when we were going to do the surround, um, we I reached out to the Andersons. You know, this is in their wheelhouse. They're
Sure.
very good at creating the mix, and obviously we were Grammy nominated for the Patricia Barber
Yeah.
Click for the immersive
Yeah.
category, and so that's kind of how the Andersons, got involved. Then later on, for various reasons, the project was canceled, and we decided not to do the surround mix.
Okay.
But I wanted to do a new tape transfer. We After listening to the first mix, I felt like there was more, and we wanted to give it a try again.
Yeah.
So we wanted to take the tapes to the world famous Skywalker Studio to have it
Only the best.
only the best, the best equipment, the most meticulous work. But it was done during COVID, so it was during
Yeah.
a really complicated time, and Skywalker had a really strict lockdown process. Very
Okay.
few people were allowed in the studio during that time. The Andersons were one of the very few engineers that had the open door policy. They were
Cool.
able to go. So I asked the Andersons if they would help and take the tapes to Skywalker to do another run of cleaning, baking, transfer, which Ulrike supervised, and Dana Thompson, was the engineer who handled the transfer.
I mean,
And
it's a lot of work, right? I mean, they rebake them, they do some cleaning. I mean, this is painstaking, deliberate work, isn't it?
it is.
Yeah.
It's like everything. There's many ways of doing this, and
Sure.
Skywalker was extremely meticulous
I'll
in
bet.
and preserving and baking and extracting what we were looking for. And it was um, Chuck Granada, who is the co-producer and also the the writer for our liner notes.
Yeah.
He actually went to Al's house to New Jersey,
Right.
and picked up all the tapes, carried it to his house, carefully packaged the tapes. We shipped it out FedEx via priority overnight, and it was a very nerve-wracking 24 hours. We were on pins and needle until we knew the master tapes arrived to Skywalker safely.
I can only imagine with
Yeah.
shipping being what it is today. Oh my God, I'd have been. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have slept.
It was well preserved. It was highly insured, and
Sure.
we were literally like every hours I'm on like FedEx website, like
I
tracking.
I'm sure. Now, engineer Roy Hendrickson has been engineering and mixing for decades. He's worked on probably more than 300 titles, including records for Miles Davis, David Sanborn. He's done Frank Sinatra records, and he worked with Al on 4 of his records, right?
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
how did he end up being the choice? I mean, it seems like it was probably a logical choice, but who made that decision?
It was a team decision, because we were working on a brand new album. Our goal was to build something that that both Al and Impex would be really proud of, and we were creating something from ground up. So unlike our previous experience with other engineers, we needed someone with a different type of experience.
Right.
We also were looking at an engineer that has worked with Al in the past, so that would give Al some comfort
Sure.
and trust. Roy came highly recommended
I can see that.
by Andrea, our counselor, and also by Chuck, and just a group of friends that we all knew. He came highly recommended, and Roy had the skill, the
Yeah.
expertise, but most importantly, he had the personality.
Yeah. Well, he
Because
certainly has the credentials. Oh my God. I mean, the records he's done.
the
Now,
credential was not in question, but we were trying to see if he would be a good fit for the team, and I think the conversation was 30 minutes into it, and we all knew he was
Cool.
perfect.
You have to love it when there's that kind of when there's a click like that. It makes everything a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yes. The
Yeah.
synergy of the team is half of the success, because
Yeah.
you're already out there battling with, all these outside influence. So if you're
Yeah.
still battling at home, fighting among your teams, it's a nightmare.
I'll bet. Now,
Yeah.
he did something rather original. He reached out to the original engineering team on Friday night to get a handle on what they had done, what kind of equipment they had used, what kind of reverb, and how they focused on things and highlighted or didn't highlight things. And that's pretty impressive. I think I mean, was it just luck that he happened to know the guys at the time, or was that part of the decision when he was thought of?
No, I think it was luck. And to express, this project is truly a labor of love. We spared no expense, we left no stones unturned. And it wasn't just Ulrike also reached out to the original team. We
Oh,
went down to see who was still living, who
yeah,
wasn't, who we should be talking to, because we wanted to make sure that Saturday night had that same feeling. Want to make sure it was
yeah.
the same feeling, same vibe as Friday night. It was a cohesive, performance. So Ulrike also reached out to the original team, and when Roy got involved, he did the same thing. He reached out to the people involved, wanted to find out how it was done, how it was mixed, what equipment was used, so we can keep that original feel and essence of the album.
Well, it was damn successful, if you don't mind me saying so. Um, the record is, I think perhaps that the 45 RPM Friday Night has a sonic edge over this, but the thing that you mentioned, the ambiance, the feel, that sense of how it was in that hall that night is clearly apparent on this new record, and I think you got a hit on your hands. Hopefully, you'll be doing a lot of repressings.
Yes.
I
Me
like that's a
too, me too.
yeah. I know you guys busted your tail on this, and it's a really good sounding record. And
Two
that
and a
brings me
half years in the
to
making. 2.5 years in the
yeah,
making.
yeah, that's
And
insane.
if we weren't happy, we did it again. But we wanted to feel like it was a continuation.
Yeah,
People were there. We wanted everybody who listens to the album felt like they were part of that concert that evening, that
yeah.
magical night.
Well, and I see this as basically a companion record to the first. Now,
It
the
is.
first one's ultimately famous. I mean, it's one of the most successful records of its kind in the history of recording. And
Yes.
the trio, I mean, who's ever heard that record that doesn't love that trio and that recording? So this is to me an option for those of us who have always been fans to get a little bit more of that night. And it's a lot of fun. I think people are gonna love the hell out of this thing.
I
Um,
love this album. I
oh,
I love the selection that Al did.
yeah,
He was very meticulous in his thought process, and I really feel like it really completes the concert, the whole
absolutely.
weekend.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. Now, the last real major question I have to ask you is, we know that this wizard known as Bernie Grunman was involved.
Yeah.
And there was talk of both a valve and a solid state driven lathe cut. Can you talk about what happened with that process and maybe share with us which version was used for the pressing?
Yes. So we Bernie mastered the previous versions done by our predecessors, and also mastered Impex 33 and 45. He knew the album really well,
Yeah.
and he's also an engineer that Al greatly respects. So Bernie was, the natural choice. So we brought the tape to him and we listened through it, and Bernie kind of did his magic. And we decided, how, because working with Bernie, we had the option or the privilege of testing it out on tube lathe or solid state. And we cut a sample using both system, and we took it home. Bob Donnelly took home the test rev, and he listened to it carefully using various systems, from very high-end system with high-end cartridge to more budget-friendly system and budget-friendly cartridge. And after a couple of evaluation and the team got together, we felt that we wanted to use the 2-plate. It really, helped bring out kind of the process, the vintage process that we took.
Well, it probably accentuated the body and bloom of the guitars sound, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't think tubes are always the right answer, but in a situation like this, wow.
No, you're right. Tube is not, sometimes people insist on this, all analog tube, but it's not always the best fit.
Right.
We try to do what's best for the album, for the music. And for this choice, having a tube lathe was very helpful.
Well, I couldn't agree more, Abey. I think it's a fabulous sounding record. Thanks for sending it to me and letting me get on board with it.
It really captures the essence of that night really well.
Oh, it's another snapshot in time, and it's a companion to that original record. I think anybody that has the first one's going to have this one. There's just no way not to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have it out on CD and SACD.
SACD.
And the SACD has a bonus track.
I saw that on the listening. People will see that too. Yeah. Now, I know you're busy. I want to let you go, but is there anything you want viewers to know about this LP that we haven't talked about?
It's really one of the most amazing project I've worked on. I genuinely feel it is an amazing recording.
It is.
Showcase a trio. Trio's like on a first name basis. When you say the trio, everybody knows, who
exactly
who they are.
Exactly.
And it's a collaboration of whether it was RTI and Stoughton and our team and Al's team, all of us coming, which was a pretty good sized team, come together to release this album. It's quite magical. It was really well done. And also it accompanies a 16-page booklet written by Chuck about the history, about the artist, about our process. So you really get the complete performance once you have this album.
Well, it's a fabulous effort. I know you guys had to have busted your butts. I can't imagine the teamwork it took. 2.5 years in the making.
Well, one of the things that we did also do is, because this was a complex process and there was a lot of people involved and a lot of people who helped, bring this project to fruition, we hired a filmmaker to document our process. I believe the video will be posted on Elusive Disc's YouTube channel in the next few weeks, and it really kind of walks the fans, through the process of how from birth to delivery.
Well, I'll be posting the link once we have it back on the Al review and on this. And thank you for sharing it with me and letting me see it ahead of time. It's a really fascinating view for people. They're gonna dig this as soon as it comes out, and I'll be sharing that link for Elusive Disc as soon as it's up. Be sure to let me know when it comes up so I can get it up there for you.
I will let you know.
Abey, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me, and thank you for your time.
Entirely my pleasure. You have a great time, and we'll talk again soon, I hope. I may come out to see you in Impex sometime.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you again, Abey, for taking the time to share all this information with us today. Now, guys, if you would like to know even more about this remarkable record, I have included a link to Discovering Saturday Night in San Francisco in today's description section. I hope you will watch it, as it is a fascinating recounting of the story behind the remarkable efforts by so many people to bring this amazing recording to life. Thank you for taking the time to drop by today. Please click the subscribe and notify buttons if you haven't already. Be sure to share your comments or questions, and please don't forget to like and share links to your favorite episodes with your friends or on social media. Further information on supporting the channel may be found in today's description section or at my website, theaudioanalyst.com. Please stay safe and keep the music playing, guys. Till next time, cheers.